Hey guys, how are you? I hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I have yet another movie review. This movie is a horror film from Belgium, French language, English subs, released in the year 2014, directed by Fabrice de Veltz, and this film is called Alleluia. So the story to Alleluia, you've got this young, not young, but middle-aged woman who has a daughter. Her partner has left her and she's very depressed, she's lonely, so her best friend tells her to go online on this internet dating site, and this is where she meets up with a guy. Now this guy wants to go to lunch with her. Her friend convinces her to go along with it. You know, she doesn't have to love the guy. If it doesn't work out, then so be it, but you know, it's better to try than not to try. So she goes to the lunch and immediately she is captivated by this guy and she falls into a very deep obsession for him. So it turns out that this guy is a gigolo. Initially he said he was a shoe salesman, but that was just a cover. So what this guy does, he has women pay him for him to please them, but he's also a swindler. So he likes to marry women and then get all their money and go to the next woman. So this female, she is initially put off by this, but then she comes to the conclusion that she would rather have him than not have him, so she is willing to go along with this idea. So she says that he can marry whoever he wants in order to get money, but that she is the only one that he can love. So he agrees to this, but along the way, this woman's obsession is getting in the way and she's starting to go down a very psychotic road, and she's starting to lash out very violently against those who she sees are trying to steal her soon-to-be husband. So what happens in that point on, and whether or not the relationship can sustain all this pressure, is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Alleluia. I was really psyched to see this movie. You guys know that I'm a massive Fabrice de Veltz fan, and if you're a fan of movies like Calvaire, you are going to like Alleluia. Now I will say that there are more problems to Alleluia than there were with Calvaire. I thought Calvaire was a masterpiece of that genre, and the positives far outweigh the negatives, and the negatives of that film don't really come to the front because you're distracted by all the good quality. But in this movie, I thought this was much more of a subdued sort of a performance from Fabrice de Veltz, and the negatives, unfortunately, you do notice them. Now, to start off with, I will say that this is typical Fabrice de Veltz in the atmosphere. It's a very dirty atmosphere. It feels like you need to have a shower. He's capturing the other ugly side of romance. This is not a fluffy romantic comedy movie where everything works out. Fabrice de Veltz shows you the twisted side of love. And this connection that the two main characters has was fascinating, because they were both very unhinged. At the start of the film, you feel that although these characters aren't necessarily doing anything strange, you know that they're slightly odd. And when they get together and the destruction that they can cause together, it actually feels like a genuine serial killer couple. Now this movie is based on the Lonely Heart serial killers of the 1950s in the United States, where a couple, they picked lonely widows, took them for all their money and then killed them. So I'm not familiar with that story, but this movie is actually based on that. And you actually feel that this is a serial killer based film, because these two, they love each other, and it feels like their love is the only thing that counts, and no matter how twisted they are and how twisted the outside world is, their love is what keeps them together and it keeps them sane. In their eyes it keeps them sane, but they are insane, and it actually feels like you're going along in their psyche. It actually feels like you've got their psychology where you're going slightly insane because of the way the visuals are done. It's got very odd music, it's got very odd visuals, and that's everything that Fabrice de Veltz does so well, and that's his trademark, and that's what he keeps in Alleluia, and that is the best part of it. You feel like you're watching a horror film. You feel like you're watching a genuinely scary couple do about their business, and it's something that Fabrice de Veltz captures so much better than a lot of other horror directors out there. Now, the acting was absolutely fantastic. The person who played the lady was the best part of the film. She's a Spanish actress. You didn't know when she was going to flip out, and there's a lot of uncertainty because this character was so emotionally unstable that it kept a level of suspense, because you didn't know whether she was going to flip out at this person, flip out at that person, because the littlest things could get her so wound up, and you felt a very authentic performance from her, and she was genuinely scary. And it's a very random film, and there was a random scene, and it's the only scene in the film that was a musical, and she started singing next to this dead body. And I thought, wow, this is Fabrice de Veltz. This is everything that is good about Fabrice de Veltz. Just so random, and it's just so surreal, and the lyrics to the film and the way that the actual song was shot was just so deeply unsettling, and that was one of the most memorable scenes in the film, that sort of musical number. And I just wasn't expecting it, and that's something that, as I said, you get from this director. He just flashes something that you're not expecting, and that's half of the fun of watching a Fabrice de Veltz film. Now, Laurent Lucas plays the gigolo. He was absolutely fantastic once again. He is a favourite of Fabrice DeVeltz, and I can see why. His character was equally as unstable, but he was much more calmer. So they really played off each other very well. It was a very captivating love story, but it was a very morbid love story. And then right at the end, it really hits you, and you feel like you've watched a movie that has really exhausted you. And that's everything you want from a movie experience. Now, my problems with the film, although it's a very good movie, I thought that it was jumping a lot and that it was cutting corners, it was fast tracking itself, and you kind of feel to yourself that you weren't ready to jump to this conclusion. So for example, before you know that he is going to marry people in order to steal their money, it's already happened. So you think, whoa, okay, what's happening here? Why is he marrying this person? And then you find out. And then it jumps to another story, and you feel that the romance that this guy is connecting with these other women is happening way too quickly. And you think, okay, I'm missing something here. Why is this just random? He's going from one woman to another to another. Yes, okay, he's a gigolo who's very handsome, very charming, and he's ripping these people off, but it's happening way too quickly. So you don't get the sense that they're genuinely falling in love with him. You sense that they're falling in love with him for the progression of the film. So that part really got to me, and I thought that that was a distraction. I couldn't get my head around. I'm thinking, okay, this is really fast forwarding itself. And so the section, say the three-quarter section, it felt like it was hurried. And then right at the end, once again, it's a very good ending, but it felt like that sort of, this one section that was fast forwarded, that felt like it was a distraction, that felt like it was being lazy. And the rest of the film wasn't being lazy. His other films had so much patience, but this movie, it just felt like a slight section had a lot of, he was too eager to make the point of what this guy was doing, and he was trying to do too much within this very small time space. And so that was my only criticism of the movie, but unfortunately that criticism does dampen the effect, and it makes it less makes it more less of an impact, because when he goes to these next victims, it feels like it's going too quickly, so you don't really get a connection to these victims as much as you should. So that was my only criticism of the film. All in all, it's a very enjoyable movie. If you're a fan of Calvert, you will really like this film. Not as good as Calvert, but still worth the time and effort. So overall, for Alleluia, going to give it 3.5 stars. Go out there and see it. Alright guys, that's my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later. Bye.